Now back to our top story. This breaking news that Bob Brown has resigned as leader of the Greens Parliamentary Party. He's also stepping down as a senator after 16 years service. He's holding a media conference very shortly. We might be able to, we can't bring you a live shot of that right now. There we go. That's a live shot from Federal Parliament. Greens leader Bob Brown should be stepping up there at any moment to announce this. The Greens have already put out a media release in the last 15 minutes or so, saying it's prime time to hand over the reins. I offer a huge thank you to the 1.7 million Australian voters who elected our Green team and to my 9 colleagues. They've made each Green year in this Parliament better than the year before. So while we wait for Bob Brown to step up there, we might go to our political editor, Lyndall Curtis. Lyndall, just in the last 5 or 10 minutes, have you seen any more commentary on Bob Brown's decision to step down?
Well, we have finally seen a media release from the new Australian Greens leader, Christine Milne, who said she'll be seeking to build on Bob Brown's legacy. She said her top priorities as leader are showing Australians that preparing our nation for the huge challenges of the 21st century is about improving quality of life. OK,
thanks very much for that, Lyndall. Bob Brown is walking into that media conference. Let's cross live to Canberra now.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. At 10 o'clock this morning, I informed my party room that I was resigning as leader of the Australian Greens in this Parliament, and I intend to leave the Senate within a couple of months when a replacement has been found amongst a list of very good potential senators from Tasmania. The party room has elected Christine to the leadership unanimously, and we will be holding a further party room meeting at 2 o'clock to determine who will replace Christine as deputy leader of the party. I want to say at the outset that this decision comes from thinking about it over the months since the last election. But I was away at the Global Greens Conference in Senegal a fortnight ago and with my good partner Paul, and we came to the conclusion that this was the right time. I'm, of course, very sad to go, but also happy to make way for the depth of talent that there is in the Green Parliamentary Party, both in the party room now and lined up to take future positions as this party grows into the future. I'm 67 and I'm aware that one should always make room for renewal in politics. A democracy is the healthier for the turnover of the depth of talent there is in its community. I'm enormously grateful to the 1.7 million Australians who voted Green at the last election. I remember well being in this Parliament as the only Green a decade ago. Here we are now 10. I'm proud of every one of them. In my books, they are all leadership material and they are taking a lead in politics. We Greens bring to this nation a vision that's not found in the other political parties. Christine was the instigator and a driving force for the carbon package, which, despite all the criticism we see in various quarters of this commentary, is a global breakthrough for protecting the interests of this planet, its economy, its employment, as we move into a century of climate change and many other problems besetting the human community. I love this nation, Australia. I love my home state, Ireland, and Paul and I will be heading off for a bushwalk in the next few days to the snowy tops of the Harts Range, quite near to home. I'm going to look forward to some photography and some writing. I've been invited to speak to a public forum at Stuttgart in Germany, where the Greens hold government. And I've already been invited by my colleagues from New Zealand across the ditch, or as they say, the ditch, to come over there any time. I'm very grateful for the feedback we have. I want to thank my family, my families, the Browns and the Thomases. I want to thank my wonderful staff, not least Ben Oaquist, who's up the back there, who's been a great friend, confident, and a fount of political common sense. In the 16 years I've been here enjoying serving the Greens and this country in the nation's parliament. I want to thank my colleagues who are a brilliant lot. I leave the Greens in very safe and growing hands. Christine and I remember well when this isn't the first time we've done this. I left the Tasmanian Parliament and she took on the leadership, and there were all sorts of dismal proclamations about the end of the Greens. Well, look at us now. This party is set to grow. It knows where it's going. It has the environmental, social, economic and employment policies which are going to be the measure against which the other parties will, I think, be found wanting as we go to the next election and on beyond that. I thank all the staff who have been with me during these 16 years. I thank the wonderful public. There's been a conversion in those years from getting quite a bit of abuse around the place to widespread thank God for the Greens in the streets in Salamanca Place, in the Retro Coffee Shop, and all the other places that Greens frequent and that I go to, which are way beyond the green pale in modern Australia. This is a brilliant country. It's the wealthiest country per capita on the face of the planet. We're one of the 4 oldest continuous democracies, and we have a big role to play in both looking after ourselves, making sure our grandkids have got the beautiful heritage, and that's not least our Indigenous First Australians, got the heritage that we have now to pass on to them intact, and all the better for us being here. But we, as a middle order nation, have a role to play in a world which seeks peace, democracy, a fair go for everyone. And I'll be working, well, let me say this, I will be a Green until the day I die, if not for a long time after that. And I'm well aware of the size of this decision, but it is, I think it's the best wisdom I can muster to have resigned this morning. I thank my colleagues who in the main were taken by surprise. I had to talk with Christine about this since I came back from Africa, and I'll now hand across to the new leader of the Australian Greens, Christine Milne.
Thank you. Well, thank you, Bob, and I'd like to begin by paying tribute to Bob as an absolutely remarkable and outstanding leader of this nation. When you reflect on his career, and I've worked with him for a quarter of a century now, he has contributed enormously to the thinking of this country, and in particular to highlighting the compassion that exists in this country and confronting people with the reality of the need for a more caring, inclusive society. And it's going to be a great legacy for him, and it's going to take all of us in the Greens, both here in the Parliament and our membership around the country, to now build on that great legacy that Bob has left. But we will do that. We are a great party. We are the third party in Australian politics. We've got state members right around the country. We have a membership base right across the nation. And today will be the opportunity for all of those people to recommit to the Greens and essentially to go out there and commit to the opportunity that is now provided to the Greens to step up, to talk about the kind of Australia we want in this century. Climate change is accelerating and the mining boom will end. What sort of country do we want in this century? How are we going to respond to the global challenge of climate change? How are we going to respond to being, for the first time in Australia's history, in the right place at the right time in our sense of our geographical placement in the world? We are currently seeing the biggest assault on the environment in Australia we've seen in a very long time, not just because of climate change, but because of the rapaciousness of the mining industry and the willingness of both the Liberal and Labor parties in Australia to cave in to the few who want to push out of the way every environmental protection that communities have fought for a long, long time. If ever the Greens were needed in Australian politics, in public life, in redefining the debate in Australia, it's now. And I'm really looking forward to being able to lead the party in that direction. We need an economic narrative that joins up the dots, that says we need environmental outcomes to sustain our economic outcomes, to actually support the kind of society and community that we want. And that is the conversation that the Greens will be leading. I intend to go out to rural and regional Australia to have this discussion, because rural and regional Australia has a critical role to play in this century, particularly in terms of food security in a global context, particularly in terms of renewable energy and energy efficiency. Rural communities will also be the backbone of environmental sustainability and protection, and I'm going out there as a country person to say to other country people, it's time that the Greens and country and rural and regional Australia really work together. But I also want to have a much more vigorous dialogue with progressive business in Australia, because progressive business knows that we have to address the climate challenge, but they also see incredible opportunities in addressing that climate challenge. Only yesterday I met with a company in Melbourne, Silver Springs, who are doing fantastic work out there in Indigenous communities in particular, but looking at ways in which the smart grid, in which the NBN, a whole way in which we can transform lives in rural and regional Australia to add jobs, opportunities in those communities. So I'm really looking forward to that, and to pursuing, of course, the readiness of this country to respond to the greatest challenge of this century, and that is climate change. So I really want to thank my colleagues for the trust that they have afforded to me today. I intend to work very hard to make them proud of the Green team in the Parliament, and to go out to our membership across the country and say, this is the opportunity to build on Bob Brown's legacy. This is our opportunity to talk to Australia, to join up the dots, to have a conversation about quality of life, equality of opportunity, and to actually address the fact that we are a society, not just an economy. That is the Greens' challenge, and I'm really looking forward to taking it on. Thank you. We'll just...
Senator Brown. We'll start with one here.
Agreement with the Gillard government. Will there be any changes to that?
No, the agreement was Christine Milne signed that agreement, as I did. So same as before. The one I've informed the Prime Minister's in COAG, of course, but I've made sure that she's been informed of this change. I've also informed Her Excellency, the Governor-General, who's in the Philippines, and I've informed the office of Tony Abbott, the Leader of the Opposition, as well as my colleagues in Tasmania. The arrangement with the government is stays the same.
Senator Brown, can you explain?
I'll go this way, then that way.
You cited Rupert Murdoch as a model for longevity in the saddle. He's still in the saddle. Why aren't you?
Well, look, 12 or 18 months ago I did cite Rupert Murdoch as being a role model. and that I'd stay in until 2024 to catch up with his age. But I've watched his progress in the last 18 months and I've decided I changed my mind. And so here I am.
Senator Brown, can you explain why you're leaving before the July 1 introduction of the clean energy scheme and the carbon price? Did you at all think about staying for that big event to take place, and why you've decided to go before that?
Well, two reasons for that. There is the political imperative of nominating again in Tasmania for the next 6 years in the Senate, and that decision has to be made before July. And so I wanted to make it clear that I won't be renominating in Tasmania, and to give the Tasmanian Party the opportunity to select a replacement for me, as well as a second person to stand on that ticket at next year's election. When it comes to July the 1st, I'm going to enjoy that as a citizen, but Christine Milne will be leading this party, and nobody in this nation is more can have greater accolades for moving Australia into a reasonable direction to tackle climate change than Christine. So she'll be there with our colleagues. Adam Bant, you'll know, was on that committee all the way through, the member for Melbourne. He can also take kudos from that, as our colleagues in the Labor Party will. It's a monumental breakthrough for this nation and for the world. I'll go to you, and then to you, and then back to you.
Senator Milne, do you envisage a different, your approach being any different in its dealing with the government than Senator Brown? Do you envisage being more aggressive on any certain issues, or are you going to follow basically his template?
Okay.
And I mean that as far as exercising Senate power, are you going to sort of maybe do the mining tax revisited or anything like that, or are you?
Well, in terms of the agreement with the government, as Bob has just said a moment ago, I was a signatory to that agreement, and I will work to continue the implementation of that agreement, but there will be no renegotiation of the agreement that I'm already a signatory to. In terms of working with the government, I've had a lot of experience in balance of power politics. I was in balance of power with a minority Labor government in Tasmania, in balance of power with a minority Liberal government in Tasmania. I've had the experience of shared balance of power in the Senate, and then the balance of power we're currently in. So I intend to work as hard as I can with the government and with the Parliament to deliver on the Greens' objectives. That is our role here, to advance green policies. We've got 48 private members' bills in the Parliament. I'm going to work to see how many of those we can actually have debated and voted and move those agendas forward. My role is to advance the Greens, to give the community a very clear signal about where the Greens want to take this country, and I will be using my parliamentary experience, the experience and depth of talent with my colleagues, to put as much pressure to bear on the government and the Parliament to see an alternative way forward.
As far as advancing the Greens is concerned, obviously you reached a new high point in the 2010 election, but since then the Greens have had difficulty accumulating new seats in state elections. I just wonder whether you see a need to change or change tactics or shift the way you work on politics to keep moving the Greens forward, to use an expression. And is this part of what you're talking about with rural and regional Australia?
Thank you, Laura. Certainly going out and having a conversation with rural and regional Australia is critical. The Greens and rural communities, farmers, have lots in common. If we are going to sustain the land for food production, we have to have a conversation about ecological sustainability, how to do that, and of course the Murray-Darling is a case in point. But equally, if farmers are to produce food, then we have to make sure that they can stay on their farms, that there is a framework there to allow farmers to stay on their farms, communities to advance their interests, particularly with renewable energy. So I will be certainly going out to say we work very well with people from all communities in Australia, and I think the Greens and the Bush have misunderstood ourselves, if you like, for some time. I'm going to try and put that right. So clearly that will be one of the ways in which I'll be trying to advance a new conversation. And I think the other conversation I mentioned was with business. I intend to be very proactive about recognising that business in Australia is not heterogeneous, if you like. Business in Australia now is split between the vested interests of the old economy and those businesses that know the new economy and the new low-carbon future is the way to go, and I intend to build those relationships.
Can I ask you,
Andrew?
I think, Christine, you mentioned before that you've been in this position before in terms of succession. On that theme, Senator Brown, would you be encouraging Nick McKim to contest your position, given that he might also be a future Greens leader nationally? Well
spotted, Andrew. I've spoken with Nick this morning and he's told me categorically he won't be putting up his hand. He's there leading the Tasmanian Greens in the Tasmanian Parliament and will do so through to the next election. I'm not going to name any names here, but we have some very good candidates in the offing, and there'll be a good senator from Tasmania very shortly. We'll go to you.
We're an enthusiastic endorser of balance of power government when this parliament began. So this far through, how do you reckon it's working, and how do you think it's being perceived by voters?
I think it's working in terms of advancing a difficult agenda. There is no doubt in my mind that if there had been a majority government of either Liberal or Labor persuasion, we would not have had a clean energy package for Australia. We would not have advanced renewable energy in the way that we have. We would not be now talking about a national energy efficiency scheme. We would not be having the kind of opportunities that are now emerging in rural and regional Australia, because minority governments actually make hard decisions. Minority governments also are prepared to take into account on the floor of the Parliament everyone's ideas. In terms of how it's perceived, I think part of the problem has been that the coalition has chosen from the start not to engage in the policy opportunities that are there with minority government, had they been prepared to actually advance policy rather than just play politics. We could have got a lot more done, because there are many issues on which we could have all worked in a collaborative way. And I'm interested now that as we come into the election cycle, that Tony Abbott now suddenly wants to be involved in committees and collaborative discussions, having had no interest up until now, until he thought he could break the back of this parliament. But actually, if you look at the number of bills that have gone through, the kinds of reforms that have been achieved, a lot has been achieved in minority government, and it is certainly not, it has not been because of the Greens that we've had this absolutely carping negative behaviour from Tony Abbott. What we're seeing is it's actually a bigger play about the old vested interests of the resource-based economy trying to hold on to their vested interests for as long as they possibly can, and the proponents of the new economy being lukewarm and not as out there as they might have been in proposing the benefits of the new economy. It's something Machiavelli recognised in the 15th century, and it's being played out in this parliament. But it doesn't say that balance of power politics doesn't work. In fact, I think this has been a good example of how it can work.
Senator Brown, congratulations, first of all.
Thank you.
Secondly, what do you see as your greatest legacy? Is it the growth of the Greens, the carbon price, environmental consciousness, whatever you care to suggest? And secondly, do you still think that in your absence the Greens can grow and one day supplant one of the major parties in Australia? Yes,
the Greens are on trajectory to become a future government, and our job isn't to make the so-and-sos honest, it's to replace them. But that said, we're well versed in every time there's a change of leadership with the Greens, that's the end of them, or we've plateaued or whatever. We continue to build. Speaking to my colleagues in New Zealand who a few years ago had a change of very established leadership at the top. They're now on a record 17% in the polls, and that's we're sitting at a point or two higher than the last election. But I think the public looks for renewal, and we're one. I mean, this has been a seamless transition by the Greens, and I thank my colleagues who are standing behind me. When you ask that question, none of us are individuals. We work as a team. You've only got to look at the work of Sarah Hanson-Young on the decency and law-abiding approach to asylum seekers to see that, or to see the innovative work coming from Adam Bant as the member for Melbourne, whether it's in workplace relationships or looking after people who are getting the thin end in our very wealthy society. I feel very happy that this team of 10 is here. Let's be real about this. Age 73, and I'm not an ageist, although I've had a few people flinging epithets at me across the Senate and elsewhere in recent times. I'm still quite nimble and athletic, but that said, this is the youngest and most feisty and innovative team you'll find in this parliament, and it's a great reassurance to me that under Christine's leadership this team will be here in place. In terms of other legacies, well, we're in a very big downturn where the mining corporations, look at those ads in today's paper, can't be matched by non-government organisations, and we're seeing a rollover of community which has purchased democracy, a la America, and it's here and growing rapidly in Australia. And it's not all pretty, but the Greens are, and I think, well, one exception, and I'm also, tremendously grateful to the strength that Paul's given me over these years. I wouldn't be here if it weren't for him, and we're going to have a lot of time together, and I'm looking forward to that in the coming months and years.
If I can ask you to be specific, you talked about carbon pricing, you talked about the August 2010 election, which obviously you put at the top of your list of highlights and achievements. What else can you name as moments in your political career that you see as achievements or highlights? And on the other side of that, where in your time in Parliament have the disappointments been? Well,
I just think you have to look at those 45 bills before the Parliament. We're not a government. We're the centre of innovation in this Parliament. And we have community group after community group, organisations. Let me look at education. We're the one party here who is fit to fund the Gonski reforms. The government won't do it. They will not do it. Nor will the opposition, which wants to cut $2.8 billion out of education. We Greens show how to fund that. High-speed rail. You would have thought the big parties would have been right on it. It's been Adam Bant who's been driving this nation to become the 33rd country in the world. We're way behind Saudi Arabia and China and France, Japan in looking at Britain, in looking at high-speed rail, and yet we've got the best configuration, I think, anywhere on the planet. Where's the money going to come from that if you don't get a decent return on the resource base? I think the economic modelling that we have put up as an alternative in an age where both the big parties say, oh, the budget's got to be in the black, suffer the manufacturing industry. That's part of the downside of it. We Greens say, no, you can do much better than that. And another, look at Rachel Seawart's work with Indigenous Australians, First Australians, where languages are going extinct, where all the indices are at the back of the class after all these years, where she's struggling to make sure the big parties serially don't keep using racial discrimination against First Australians. I'm just very proud of everybody in this team, and it's the team that I'm proud of. You asked me about my disappointments. Well, you know, I didn't get to be Minister for Westerly Winds because we're a party that's driven by the well-being of the Australian people. I haven't become Minister for anything or Secretary for anything. I'm not really disappointed about that. And here's a secret, just put your pens down. I'm not going to have valedictories in this Parliament. You know, I think there's too much cant involved in such things. I'll go and speak with those folk that have supported me and here, been with me, my colleagues. I don't know, you can't dictate what the future is, but I think a little bit more earnest honesty in parliamentary ranks would be a good thing.
From Nelson Mandela to Lee Kuan Yew, there is a tradition in some societies for elders of the thing to retain a role as a kind of a mentor and a guide. Do you see any such role for yourself?
That word, elder statesman's been used in the party room this morning, and I suddenly think how young I am. But I'll be green to the day I die, as I said earlier. But
in terms of activism, is it over for you now?
Oh, no. No. The world needs Florence Nightingales and Wilberforces and... you know, I just visited the slave. Paul and I went to Gorée Island in Senegal, where for 400 years slaves were shipped across the Atlantic. It took people who were prepared to take on the big businesses of the day to bring an end to that. I mean, the industries in Britain were trade exposed by not having slavery while the United States
But
did.
in practical terms, do you see a role for yourself? This is fine in broad terms, but have you thought beyond to a role? Will you be engaged? Will you even be welcome to be engaged as a regular mentor to young senators?
Let me answer that, Hugh. We absolutely welcome...
Will I be?
Yes, absolutely. There is no question about that. We will warmly and openly welcome Bob's involvement in the party around the country. In fact, there would be panic if we thought that he wasn't going to be involved around the country, because he's been an activist for so long. And in answer to some of the questions about what's your legacy and asking in particular terms about this or that policy position or outcome, I think Bob's greatest legacy is that he has demonstrated you can have courage and integrity and a values-based politics that stands the test of time and can go out there and say the things that need to be said in spite of the fact that it may be very unpopular at the time. And it leads the debate to when eventually it opens up the space for the conversation where eventually you achieve that. When I was elected in 1989, there was 21 years jail in Tasmania for being a practising homosexual, 21 years in prison. And Bob led the campaign from 1989 until now, and with Sarah now leading and Adam in the Parliament here, to take it from there. And I took on from Bob in the Tasmanian Parliament, and it was my legislation that achieved gay law reform, but it was on the back of a very, very bitter and hard contested campaign. Now I find it extraordinary, and Bob and I sometimes discuss this, about now it's actually mainstream. Everybody looks at you as if, how could people not think this was appropriate to have marriage equality, and it's overwhelmingly the majority view, and we will achieve it. That is on the back of a very long-standing, courageous campaign. The same goes for asylum seekers. Who stood up in the Parliament at the time of the Tampa and said, we need to be a compassionate country. We need to think about who we are as Australians and who are the people coming to our country seeking asylum and what can we offer them. So I think actually if you want to talk about legacy, it's about courage, it's about values, and when I say our Green team now will build on Bob's legacy, we hope to carry forward the courage of the convictions of the Greens and be prepared to take on the hard decisions, which, as I referred to earlier, and will continue to do so.
Paul, what this day means to you, if that's okay, Paul. I know you've been in the background through all this and through many years. Do you mind if we just ask you what this day means for you?
Well, I'm looking forward to testing Bob's athleticism in some of the mountains of Tasmania. I'm also looking forward to him perhaps sharing a greater load of the household tasks at home.
Here comes the washing up.
and also just having time to share as a couple in the things that couples do.
Thank you, Paul. And I add to that, we'll take two more questions. It's quite a long, and we'll be having another press conference this afternoon after the deputy leadership. So, and I'm happy to talk with you. By the way, can I thank you, ladies and gentlemen of the media? You've provided me with some of the best athleticism in the Parliament, and I've enjoyed the repartee. And you have an important job to do, and I wish you well in the future in doing it. Yes. There's 8 of them behind me, every one of them. And whoever the party room wisdom selects, it'll be a good party leader. I'm wishing we had more positions, but there you go.
Senator Brown, can I just...
Sorry? Oh, yeah, certainly we're now a bicameral party, and and so the deputy leader and the leader can come from either house.
Senator Brown, can I just ask, you've been a dominant figure as leader of the Greens for many years, and a lot of that abuse and enmity you spoke about being targeted at the Greens recently is very personal, and it's really targeted at you. And I'm wondering what effect that had, if any, on your decision to leave now. Did that become too much? And are you hoping that by leaving that some of that leaves the Greens?
No, look, it's small beer compared to what I copped in the 80s in Tasmania, particularly as a gay member of the Parliament. I mean, I couldn't walk up the street without windows were wound down, and I copped it. You've got to have broad shoulders in politics, and I'm very proud of putting up with that. I get such good feedback from young women and men these days on that particular score. But you've got to have broad shoulders. And my fellow Greens here, and by the way, we're the one party with a majority of women and now a female leader, they have broad shoulders. Of course, we have our times when we feel put upon, but that's the course of history. And can I just say, ladies and gentlemen, if anybody asks me about tough times, we're not in Syria. That's my answer to that. We're not in Syria. But we do have to think about those folk who are. One last question.
Senator Brown, you've been the heart and soul of the party for so long. As you said, when you came to Parliament, first of all, you were the only member. Now you've got such a strong party behind you. Are you concerned at all that with your departure, the Greens could go the same way as the Democrats and fade away from relevance?
No, there's a difference, which is very clear in the vision that the Greens are putting forward and our ambition to replace, not be a check on other people in this Parliament. In fact, this is my honest feeling, that predominant leadership, and I've been a strong leader, they can suppress the talents of the people that you work with. And this is a very talented bunch. So quite the contrary. One of the reasons for my move is to have that talent show itself for what it's worth. I know every one of this team behind me, and I know the wealth and strength and clear-mindedness of the other 9 Greens in this Parliament. You can bank on them, and it's just a start. There's a lot more coming. There's a lot more of them coming down the line. So while I'm sad to be leaving, I'm also happy to go. And I have other things that I want to do, but I'll always, every breath I take will be as a Green. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Okay, so that was Bob Brown and Christine Milne and other Greens there live from Federal Parliament in Canberra. Bob Brown announcing his resignation as the Leader of the Greens, and he's also resigning from the Senate. Christine Milne is the new Leader of the Greens. Bob Brown says it's simply time to move on and go for a bushwalk, do some photography and writing. He's 67 years old. He says democracy is the healthier for the turnover with the depth of talent. He says he leaves the Greens in very safe and growing hands. Well, let's go now to our